It'd take like all day. All right, no gavel tonight, so welcome everybody to the October 13th, 2021 Chaska Planning Commission meeting at our one night only location at the Chaska Event Center. So welcome and thank you everyone for coming. Liz, would you do a roll, please?
Commissioner Brass.
Here.
Lacey.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Riley.
Here.
Seiler.
Here.
Urbanski. And Chairperson Dalkey.
Here. All right, then next we need to adopt tonight's agenda, which everyone should have in front of them. Take a motion to adopt the agenda.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Commissioner Brass
Second.
and Commissioner Seiler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next is a visitor presentation. Is there anybody that has anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Seeing nothing, we will move on. Next is to approve our last month's meeting minutes. So we need to approve the September 8th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting minutes. I looked at them there. It was a short meeting, so the notes were good. I'll take a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Commissioner Lacey and Commissioner Riley, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Nothing on the consent agenda tonight, so let's go right to our action item. And tonight's action item is a public hearing to recommend the approval of the preliminary plat, rezoning and sale of excess city land for reserve at Autumn Woods, Lennar. This is PC number 2021-16. Liz, you have the floor.
I'm going to share my screen before I get started here. So like Chairperson Dalkey mentioned, we have a preliminary plat and rezoning request this evening for a project known as, this was formerly known as Wagner Woods when they came in with their concept plan, but have now dubbed themselves Reserve at Autumn Woods. The applicant for this project is Lennar. Just want to provide an aerial overview of the site that we're looking at tonight. So the site in question is highlighted in blue on the screen. It's nestled in between existing Autumn Woods neighborhoods, basically on the south, west, and northwest sides of the property. Then there's also a townhome development just to the northeast. And then we have the city of Chanhassen bordering on the eastern side here with County Road 15 or Audubon Road on the east side. Autumn Woods Drive basically runs along the north and the west here, and Ironwood Boulevard stubs at the southern edge. So I just want to go over the planning process. We highlighted this in the concept plan, but just want to reiterate kind of where we're at in the process with planning. So there is a three-step process with the city. You start with concept plan, which is more of that general overview of a project, and was the first step in the process that this project went through in May of this year. So we're in the second step, which is the preliminary plat and rezoning. And this is where it involves more of the technical analysis and review, looking at the civil drawings and traffic reports. More hefty work involved at this step. So mainly addressing the issues that came about during the concept plan and showing how they've addressed that in this next step in the process. So in terms of previous approvals that have happened in and around the site, the Autumn Woods neighborhoods, which I showed on the aerial exhibit, were approved back in 1982 and 1994. There were other additions as well that aren't mentioned here, but generally speaking, the ones that abut this property were approved back then. Ironwood Boulevard was also approved as a part of one of those subdivisions and was ultimately stubbed at the southern edge of the Wagner property, which is the property in question this evening. So there was always anticipation that this street would punch through to the north to access additional development. So it was in May of this year that we first looked at this project for the concept plan approval. And back in that stage of things, the project two lots. And just to generally go over some of the concerns that were raised during that first step, a lot of them had to do with density, the lot sizes proposed, traffic and overall access, trail continuity with the other existing neighborhoods, blending in with the Autumn Woods neighborhoods, and then also being a part of the Jonathan Association, since the existing Autumn Woods neighborhoods currently are part of the Jonathan Association. I also want to note, in between concept plan and up to this point, we've had several collaboration meetings with city staff, some of the neighbors of Autumn Woods, the developer, and Carver County to basically go over some of the concerns, mainly around the traffic piece of the development, and collaborate on some options and basically what was best in terms of layout and overall traffic for the site. So the plan that we have proposed this evening very much is a result of the collaboration that occurred at those meetings. I did want to note that we did have a very recent meeting as of this week on October 11th, which was Monday, and just wanted to provide a very brief update from that meeting. We were able to have Carver County at that meeting, who did verbalize that the right-out access onto their road on Audubon Road would be approved under certain conditions. So we did get that confirmation from them that they would be okay with the right-out access as long as it met the conditions that they have in place for that improvement. We also did talk with the Jonathan Association and the developer at this meeting, just to get an idea of where they're at with things in terms of this development getting transferred over to the Jonathan Association once Lennar is done and built out with the development. So at that meeting, they were in good standing with getting that taken care of. Now I want to go over some of the concerns that were raised during concept and how this preliminary plan addresses those main concerns. So one of them was density. Again, the first plan that came through was 102 single family lots, and now it is an 86 lot project. So that is a 16 lot decrease from the initial phase, which then changes the overall density from 2.57 dwelling units an acre to 2.17 dwelling units an acre. And the lot sizes have also changed a bit from concept. Before they proposed 50-foot wide and 65-foot wide lots, which they have now changed the 50-foot lots to 55-foot lots. And the 65-foot lots are now ranging either from 65 to 75-foot lots. The 75-foot lots are primarily situated on the edges that directly abut the existing Autumn Woods neighbors. And then with traffic, I think the biggest piece that has been added to the plan versus the concept is now they are showing a right-out access onto Audubon Road, which is also known as County Road 15. That's the biggest change. A couple other improvements that are being done from a traffic standpoint is dedicated left and right turns will be added onto Autumn Woods Drive at the Audubon Road intersection. Ironwood Boulevard, as it comes through this proposed development, will have a portion basically at the south end, and I'll show this on a graphic, that'll taper in about 4 feet in the southern area of the site. And this was done as basically a traffic calming measure. So as you start to kind of lessen the width of the road, people tend to slow down as a result of that. Stop signs will also be added on the north and south sides of Ironwood Boulevard as it intersects Butternut Drive. So that'll be another improvement. And then they've also completed a traffic impact analysis for this preliminary step. So this basically was put together not only to evaluate the proposed traffic generation from the development itself, but they were also advised to look at the surrounding Autumn Woods major intersections. Just to ensure that with the proposed development, that it will still operate at serviceable levels. Another piece was trails. With the existing Autumn Woods neighborhoods, they do incorporate a level of trails within their development. So they did encourage that more trails would be added to this project. And so with this new plan, they do incorporate a significant level of more trails within the project itself. And I'll show a graphic of that later on to clearly identify where those occur. And then with the Jonathan Association, so it was a condition of approval to be a part of the Jonathan Association. So in between concept and now, the developer has been working with the Jonathan Association to make that move. Once they're done and built out, that this development would become a part of the Jonathan Association. So they've been working through all of the pieces that come with that from a legality standpoint. So they're definitely at a point where they're comfortable in both nodding their heads in the right direction. So with that, once the development does get turned over to Jonathan, Jonathan will be the owners of the tree preservation areas, the trails, the ponding areas, and the monument sign area or other common areas within the actual development. And then the public park piece, that has changed from 2.65 acres to 3.13 acres. So there has been a slight increase in size for the park space. One of the reasons that has been increased is due to the wider opening that is being achieved from the development itself, which in turn also preserves a cluster of trees that we highlighted in the concept to be preserved. So it's kind of a twofold benefit here with that change in the park. And then lastly, I think there was just a general comment in terms of allowing or having this development be more reflective of kind of the existing Autumn Woods neighborhoods out there. So with that, looking at more trail connections, which we've noted, the street system has now been downsized with the deletion of a couple lots or several lots within the development. So the street system is kind of less than what it was before. In addition to that, the open space areas have increased pretty heftily as well. And then the lots that directly abut Autumn Woods has also changed. So in the beginning at concept, they were showing about 22 lots that directly abutted the edges of Autumn Woods. And now that has been downsized to only 7 lots that directly abut. So there's about 3 lots that directly abut, but are also increased to that 75-foot wide profile. And then the other ones that abut are also buffered by a tree preservation easement. So a lot of work has gone into the overall plan to kind of address those concerns that were brought up in the concept plan. So tonight, sorry, we're looking at a preliminary plan, not a concept plan, a preliminary plat approval for an 86 lot detached single family development, which would also include the incorporation of a public park on the northwest side. So in terms of how this plan meets comp plan guidance for the area, the comprehensive plan guides it to be low density residential and also guides this area for a neighborhood park. So both of those are being achieved with this project. Just want to high level go over the existing conditions out there. So this is a 45-acre site. It's currently owned by one family who have a house and several outbuildings out there. All of those will be removed with this project. 5 wetlands were identified during their wetland delineation process. Wooded steep slopes were also identified on the north and a little bit on the south side. And they also did a tree survey during the concept, which reflects in their overall submittal. This is the concept plan. So this is where we started. So I'm not going to go over this too much, but if we need to refer back to it for any reason, we have access to that. But want to get right into the preliminary plan here and show kind of the overall layout here. But here you'll see 86 lots in this drawing set. So they're basically marketing 2 different style homes or lots within this subdivision. So 66 of the lots, which are the internal lots of the development, will be what they call their landmark lots. So these are the 65 to 75 foot wide lots, so the larger lots. And then they'll have the 20 discovery lots, which are the smaller 55 foot wide lots on the east side here. Ironwood Boulevard is showing to extend to the north to connect into Autumn Woods Drive. And that's pretty similar to kind of what we saw during the concept plan. And then we also have this internal loop street known as Sugar Maple Drive that will access those internal lots. And then as you can see here, we have the right out access shown onto Audubon Road. Landscaping and berming is also shown on this east side. So it was one of our comments during the concept plan that this side needed to be addressed heavily with berming and landscaping to act as a screen to the county road. Since this is a well-traveled and high-speed road, this would help act as a buffer to that. And then lastly, the public park space is basically shown in white on the northwest portion here of the site. And again, this will be 3.13 acres in size. And as you can see, there's a much larger opening into the development area for people to access this. I should also note, it'll come up a little later too, that the city does own strips of property. I might go to the aerial really quick here. The city owns strips of property on the north and kind of northwest sides here. So again, with the location of the park, it was selected, I would say, strategically to help blend into that already city-owned area. So the park will just be a natural inclusion into that area. Also wanted to show a section drawing just with the homes on the eastern side there as they abut the county road and the berming and landscaping system that they're gonna achieve out there. So again, it was meant to kind of be consistent with what was done to the north and kind of pull that through to the south here in this development. In terms of tree preservation and what they've surveyed out there, they did survey 722 trees on site, and of those, 574 will be saved. 148 will be removed as a part of the plan. The ones that will be removed are primarily in the center of the site and along the ponding areas and where they're putting the proposed trail system, which I didn't mention very well in this exhibit, but they are showing the inclusion of a Jonathan-owned trail to basically run along the southern edge of the property and through the wooded area and in between the lots, which would then connect into a central trail system in the middle of the site, which would then come out close to the opening of the public park space. So again, this was done primarily to address the concern brought about providing more of a trail system through this development. And then lastly, just wanted to highlight the cluster of trees that were highlighted during the concept plan to be preserved, which are now showing to be preserved with the park space being modified ever so slightly. Just want to show a couple slides of the homes that they're going to be featuring out here, showing the difference between the Landmark and Discovery series. So the Landmark series are shown here. These will be both 1-story and 2-story options, ranging from 2-car to 3-car to 4-car garage type homes. And then the Discovery series are kind of their smaller type house plan, which will be both 1-story and 2-story options with primarily 2-car garage added to that. I also want to mention, since we talked heavily on the traffic for this development, we looked at a couple different ways to incorporate things into the development and things to further explore from a traffic perspective. Construction traffic, this one, the county was able to provide at least an upfront analysis that the existing driveway that's on Audubon Road, where the Wagners access their home, would not be able to be used as a construction traffic access for a couple different reasons, but primarily because it's deemed unsafe to access there for construction. So they have recommended and are requiring that all construction traffic occur at Autumn Woods Drive on the northeast portion of the site. So that is one thing that has been determined. And then other pieces that will be installed with this development, again, I've already kind of noted these, but I'll just reiterate that the dedicated turn lanes on Autumn Woods Drive will be implemented at the Audubon Road intersection, and that will help greatly with the traffic movement there so that people who are turning left aren't creating a wait line for people who might want to turn right, who can easily do that much faster than a left turn. And then with the stop signs added to Ironwood and Butternut Drive, it helps better control people coming out of the development and controlling that intersection. And then with Ironwood Boulevard in the development, tapering in about 4 feet on the south side also helps with traffic calming in terms of people who will be coming around that curve to slow down. And these are a couple snippets showing those improvements. So on the left-hand side here, we have the dedicated turn lane shown on Autumn Woods Drive and how that would be arranged. And then to the right here is where the stop signs will be included. And it's kind of hard to tell in this drawing, but there is a slight tapering in that is happening on the south side. So where it starts is at lot 5 here and then comes down all the way to the southerly edge of the development. In addition to that, you'll see a sidewalk fully extending through all the way to Butternut Drive to help tie into this proposed pedestrian crosswalk. So this would help get people on the east side into the Jonathan Park that's on the west over here. And then I also want to mention a couple other pieces that we started to explore that, and we're definitely not going to come to a full determination or solution to these issues with this development, but something that certainly is worth further exploring and understanding kind of what can be done in some of these locations. So we've heard from the residents out there primarily that this Autumn Woods Drive Street is pretty unsafe. It doesn't have sidewalks, so people walking on it don't have that level of safety that you get on a street with sidewalks. So there's definitely pedestrian facilities that are lacking out there. And because of that, we did start to briefly look at what other options can be explored on this stretch of road, primarily as it extends down to Ironwood Boulevard. And I might actually go, I'm going to go to the visuals. It's just easier to explain. But one method or idea that's kind of circling around is from a temporary standpoint, at least, being able to provide some type of pedestrian facility, maybe on the east side of Autumn Woods Drive, which could be a striped pathway on the east side, which would then limit parking to only the west side of Autumn Woods Drive. But this essentially would provide a delineated area for pedestrians to be able to use as they walk north to south on Autumn Woods Drive. And a natural terminus to this could be at where the proposed public park entrance is proposed to be. We've also, in the pedestrian facilities map, have highlighted an area where Jonathan Trail could be extended out of the park along the east side here, which could then maybe provide full circulation to the existing or proposed sidewalk systems for the other portions of Autumn Woods Drive. Again, these are still being explored and still have to be kind of vetted through their proper processes, but just want to note that we have started to talk about these in terms of what could happen along this road to help facilitate better pedestrian movement there. In addition to that, another piece that could be explored is the installation of cones at the northwest public park entrance onto Autumn Woods Drive, which would act as bump outs at the entrance there. And basically what that would do would help kind of lessen the width of the road there. So again, when drivers see that, they'll want to slow down because they'll have to pay more attention to what's going on there. So these are just a couple pieces to keep in mind, to continue to discuss and incorporate the residents on in terms of, does this seem like something that's going in the right direction of trying to address some of the safety concerns out there. And then secondly, another piece to further explore and continue to discuss is the Butternut Drive median. So in this exhibit, they're showing a modification to the median, but today, and you might see a little bit of it here, the median does extend out to this point right about here and is a little bit wider than what's shown on here. So what happens is there's no dedicated turn lanes on Butternut Drive because of that. The other impediment is that it blocks the driveways of both these homes on the north and south sides from obtaining full movement to their driveways. So looking at other options here to have better traffic flow at this intersection is definitely something worth exploring a little bit further. And I think it seems like the residents are wanting to go down a direction that has a better layout for all of them on this road, but also help deter people from making U-turns around this median too. What they see is they have people turning in to this area and making U-turns, which then kind of add to the traffic problem there. So bringing the median out would be able to help solve some of those concerns. And then lastly, which you'll also make a motion on tonight, is regarding the city land purchase for this development. So as I mentioned before, the city owns slivers of land on the north and northwest portions of the site. So this site actually doesn't have direct access onto Autumn Woods Drive. They would have to purchase some land from the city in order to obtain that direct frontage. The piece that's kind of in the way is highlighted in blue here, and the piece that the development will have to acquire is highlighted in green here. So basically, you just have to come to the conclusion that this is excess land, which it is. It's basically a remnant from the platting process of the earlier Autumn Woods development, but seeing that it is excess and not useful land, that can be sold off to the development. And then lastly, wanted to give you an update from the park board side of things. So if we go back to the concept plan, they met on May 11th of 2021. They recommended a couple different things for the developer to address in their preliminary. So one of them was to receive a minimum of 2.65 acres of park dedication and land with a strong recommendation for additional land. And then they would receive the balance of park dedication in cash. And then the other piece was that they wanted the plan to omit Lennar's proposed parkland dedication starting at the northwest corner of lot 52 and everything east from there, and to omit lots 53, 54, and 55 to achieve the minimum 2.65 acres, all contiguous on the northwest corner of the site. So they wanted just one large chunk as opposed to a chunk and maybe a sliver, which they showed last time. So with them deleting those lots noted, they were able to create that one contiguous chunk of parkland. So those changes have all been implemented into this plan. So as a result of that, they did meet last night to review the preliminary plan, and they did approve the park dedication as it's shown on the plan this evening. So that concludes my presentation. Thanks for hanging through that. We are going to ask that you make 3 motions tonight as they're laid out on the screen. So one is recommending preliminary plat for Reserve at Autumn Woods based on the conditions that are listed in the staff report. And then a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning. So this property is getting rezoned from its existing zoning district of open to a planned residential district, PRD 79. And then lastly, you're going to make a motion to recommend, or we ask that you make a motion to recommend approval of the sale of excess city land. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. We do have the developer here along with their traffic consultant too to help answer any questions for that. And yeah, I'll leave it up to you guys now.
Thank you, Liz. Good thorough overview. Before we open up the public hearing, I'll ask any of the commissioners if they have any questions for Liz or the developer.
Questions? So I recall from the concept plan, the park was kind of an issue.
Speak up so everyone
Sure.
can hear.
So is there going to be any infrastructure in the parks, or is it just going to be like a wooded area? It doesn't show on the plan. Is there a place for kids to play? Is there
And that's
anything?
intentional right now because they don't really go through the park planning process until most of the development is built out. So they want the residents and the public to be involved as a part of the park planning process so that whatever they put out there is something that's going to be used and is wanted by the
So
people.
there is intention to put something
Yes.
as the development
Yes. It'll be
comes together, depending upon the demographic of the development, they'll determine what's best. Okay.
Yep. I mean, they'll ask for those comments at the time that they do start planning for it for the residents to provide some input.
And then this might be more for a developer, a finished question on the house, but then also you had talked about the Autumn Woods Butternut Road improvements. Is that going to be included with this motion to continue to work on that? Or is that a separate thing that those people are going to bring to the city?
It'll be separate, but it is one of those things that we do want to continue discussing down the road
I
because
do recall that from last time and that issue with the median, with the access and people coming around and then cutting off the neighbors and then also the nowhere to walk and if there's more traffic. So it is something that will be continued, but not part of this motion.
Have the answers for you by the time this comes back for
Final plat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had significant amounts of work to do and the developer did and the neighbor had significant amounts of issues to work through. And that's one of the pieces that's just still out there. We were working internal in terms of the development site first and now working on the adjacency. So the trail issues on the northwest and the butternut piece. We're going to continue to work on that. I'm pretty certain we'll have answers to the butternut piece by the time we come back for final plat. Hopefully we have some answers about the trail on the northern portion of the property along Autumn Woods at that time too. The piece of Autumn Woods going south all the way down to Butternut and maybe all the way down to Pioneer, that's a little bit more longer term.
Yeah.
And that's going to require significant amounts of discussions with the neighbors on
Sure.
what's the right
It's a lot
solution.
more impacted there.
Yeah, we haven't even started that discussion.
Okay.
The other ones, I think we can at least work through in that time frame. It was just trying to move this forward and knowing that, we have a general idea, but we need to work through the details on that butternut median.
Then another quick question. So maybe you would know. So on the finish level of the houses, I saw on like the Landmark series, it showed ones with just kind of like hardy board or whatever it was, different types of profiles. And there's one below it with a lot of stone. So is there a stone requirement in every house or is it like up to the purchaser?
that's up to the purchaser. I mean, from a city perspective, we don't have a stone requirement.
Okay.
Our requirement is solely, they need to provide LP Smart Side or something similar on the front.
Yep.
The sides can be vinyl if they wish, but they could also do LP Smart Side all the way through. But we don't have a masonry requirement. So that's kind of up to the buyer or even the covenants.
Yep.
Sure, yep.
That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Brass. Anyone else?
Hi.
Commissioner Riley, go ahead.
Yep. So with the construction traffic, it specifically says off of the Autumn Woods Drive. And so I just want to be clear that there's going to be no cut through traffic coming from the south. That's all accessed off of Audubon, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, so, I mean, the engineer is going to have to work with the construction crews out there, but the intention is that everything will come in and out of one place.
One of the things you might consider, I don't know if it's in here, is in other places you've required with the final plat, a construction traffic plan that kind of shows the signage they're going to use and where it's going to be and all of, again, it's kind of minutia detail, but very important for the neighbors. And so that is something you've required on other projects where people can maybe have a variety of routes and making sure that they go, or you direct them as much as you can, because they are public streets, right? To the places where we would like them to go. So I think that's something you may wish to consider to add to your conditions, because that's something that the commission has certainly brought up before as an issue, and isn't that hard for the developer to provide a plan on how that can happen.
Could you just restate that, Kevin? What would we add as a condition?
You would ask for the developer to provide a construction traffic plan with the final plat submission. That would include the signage, routing, all of that stuff, so that everybody's clear where things are going.
Okay. The traffic calming is very important to the community. And so can you just give us a feel for what is the process going forward? What are the action items? What are the hurdles? Who are the decision makers so that they can get through this to ensure that it does happen with final?
Well,
it doesn't drag out.
I think there's two pieces. One is inside the project, inside the Wagner property per se, And then on that, the applicant is really showing kind of what they can do. They're narrowing the road. They're looking at the geometrics of the road, putting in the stop signs, the crosswalk, the sidewalk pieces. Then you have the Autumn Woods piece.
That's right, yeah.
And on that piece, it's really the city staff and the property owners who are out there and the Jonathan Association sitting down together and collaboratively trying to work through. And our suggestion kind of initially is, you know, there's a variety of techniques that you can use that are soft to try some things out there, whether it's paint, whether it's some cones, other stuff, to see if, before you actually get into hardscape and start moving things that cost a lot of money, that it actually impacts traffic. And so trying to talk that through with the neighbors, come up with a plan of where we're trying to get to, and then come up with an implementation plan. And so the commitment from city staff to the neighborhood has been and continues to be that that's a piece that we just need to continue to work on with this to ensure, you know, we have some conceptual ideas, which Liz kind of laid out, but there might be other ideas that, and I'm sure there are, as we talk to neighbors of, well, what about this and what about that? As we talk to Jonathan, here's some different ideas. I think that there's a lot of positivity that can be brought out of that, and some relatively low-cost techniques to try things out and to see what could work and what would be beneficial for their neighborhood, because traffic calming is kind of unique to any particular road system. And although there is a toolbox, not every one is appropriate to any given situation. Trying to figure out what's the right tool for this neighborhood to have an impact that they want to see on their roads, which is, you know, the traffic slowed down and have a safe place for pedestrians to walk. And so I think, you know, there's short-term, long-term, midterm goals there that we'll identify with the neighbors and Jonathan and be able to move forward on. I think as we've talked, there's been very, like I said, I from my perspective, very positive discussions about that. No conclusions, but I think a series of ideas and a willingness to try and come up with a solution that's going to work there for everyone.
So if I'm hearing correctly, it's the city of Chaska and Jonathan in the neighborhood. So Lennar, as the developer, does not have any obligations relative to traffic calming on.
Not on the northwest side on Autumn Woods there, no.
And so that, therefore, that's not a condition of our approval here.
That's
Is the way it's strung together.
yes. And that's why we wanted to bring it up in the staff report to kind of memorialize that that is the intention, but that isn't really something we can hold. We can't really hold the developer to something that the city has the choice on whether it's going to do or not. That's really going to be between the city and the property owners and Jonathan to come to consensus, not something they can perform on.
Okay.
Per se.
You say the property owners, does that mean that there'd be an assessment potential based upon
On the
improvements?
solutions, yeah. I mean, we would put every option out there, and not to say that you have to go this way or that way. Obviously, paint is pretty cheap, and that's why we're suggesting maybe paint or cones is a good way to test rather than going to expensive options first. And also there's road life out there that we would consider, because some of this might not be needed in the near term just because the road's still in decent shape. And so why would we tear up a perfectly good road if we could achieve some of the same things with paint or cones or other markings in the short term, and long term go, okay, when we rebuild it, we would rebuild it in this way.
Yep.
And so I think that's kind of our thought pattern, and not to say that that can't be influenced and changed, and because it will be as we talk through this, but I think there's some energy around that, and we want to continue that discussion with the neighbors and Jonathan.
All right, thank you, Kevin. And I hope that helps you all out too. Couple more things. Timing, for me of the commitments is important. We include these things as part of the conditions and the development, and it does. Some of it doesn't necessarily happen in a time frame that maybe meets the expectations of the neighbors. That they some of the things that maybe are important to them happen at the end of the process, whereas they'd sure like it to happen at the beginning, so they don't have to suffer through the construction process. And suffer is a pretty strong term, but, so timing, things like landscape screening, I like to see the landscape screening in there, but to me, it'd be important that after the site is rough graded, that berm is constructed and they go ahead and landscape it to provide some screening for the people in Chanhassen, on the other side of Audubon. So the other thing is the turn lanes, up there at Autumn Woods intersection off of Audubon. I mean, there again, timing is important. That for if that's going to be the construction access point, I'd like to see that those turn lanes get implemented at the outset of construction, that they build that intersection at the commencement of construction rather than at the end or some time period. So I'd like to add conditions to our approval relative to timing. So from a city staff, is there any Achilles heel or things that from your standpoint that
From the road construction up on Autumn Woods and Audubon, I don't think so. I don't fully understand yet their construction methods of how they're going to go about grading the site to understand how that all is going to happen and what utilities need to be moved around. So I can't really speak to the landscaping piece. The applicant might be able to provide more clarity at this point, but where we sit today, I don't know enough to say if that is the right thing to do or exactly when. Earlier in the process, I don't think it's hard, but is it the first thing? I don't really know.
That was my last question. If Lennar would like to address my last question, if they had comment.
I'd like to expand on Commissioner Riley real quick. I think that brings up a great point with the turn lanes. Because if this is the 87 lot construction project, and obviously you got to build the initial road, get it in, grade it. Maybe you don't do the turn lanes then, but 15 houses go in and you've got 15 residents and they start using that road. And it's also the construction road. I think he brings up a good point. Like at what point are they going to build the turn lanes? Because as the development fills up, you're going to have that increased traffic. So being it's the construction drive and it's the turn lane solution, can that be constructed to withstand obviously the construction traffic? So
that would be a great question for the applicant.
Yep.
When we open the public
So
on the timing for the of the Autumn Woods Drive turn lanes and also the right out.
Got it.
Thank you, Brian.
Anyone else before we open up the public hearing? Very good. We will open up the public hearing now. I've got 7:48 p.m. I guess there's not that many of you here tonight, but I'd like you to keep in mind if someone makes your comment before you make it, don't make the same comment again. It's, because we, just for the sake of timing, I believe we have also probably will have some people on Zoom that may have questions as well. The applicant is here, so you can address questions to staff, us, or the applicant. So whoever, and then also I think whoever wants to speak, come up and state your name and your address. And I think you need to, you don't need to pick up the mic, just kind of, I think if you just stand right there, I think you're in good shape.
Good evening, Commissioner Dalkey and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Josh Metzer with Lennar. Whitney is with ISG, our engineer. Jeremy is with ISG, he's also on the Zoom. Our address is 16305 36th Avenue North in Plymouth. Not sure if you needed that, but not a ton to add. Liz, thank you for the very thorough presentation. Covered most of the points that I would have brought up. I do want to acknowledge all the work that have gone into this with the various parties. Definitely want to thank city staff, Jeremy with the Jonathan Association, Emily, Kip, and Mark as the neighborhood representatives. What the plan you're seeing here tonight, as Liz said, is the result of a lot of work that's gone on over several months. Lennar, we started working on this with ISG back in January. You saw this back in May. And so a lot has changed on this plan since then. And we think, sounds like we were able to meet most of the concerns of the residents in the city. And it's a plan that still works for us. So I think hopefully it's a win-win here. And we're excited to get started. Couple of questions I think that came up, Commissioner Brass, on the finish of the home exteriors. I would say probably, so all of our single family homes have, so we obviously have multiple floor plans. Each floor plan has various exterior packages you can choose. So a particular floor plan may have 4 to 8 different exteriors they can choose from. And each of those floor plans typically only has one exterior that doesn't have stone. The remainder all have stone. So the vast majority of homes that would be built here would have stone, some sort of stone element. Commissioner Riley had a question on the landscape buffer timeline. So particularly the buffer along Audubon, it's hard to know when that's going to happen because part of this is going to involve some improvements on Audubon with the right out. I believe there's going to be probably some lane widening along Audubon. There's going to be a median that's going to have to be built along the center of Audubon. So I'm not sure the timing of when that's going to happen relative to when grading starts, street utilities. So I would certainly say once, so the good thing with the buffer trees is any buffer trees, perimeter trees are usually put in by our development team. That's the team that does the grading and street utilities. Then boulevard plantings and individual lot plantings are put in by our home building team as individual lots are completed. So that way we're not planting trees where construction traffic is going to be moving through. So the landscape buffer along Audubon would go in before boulevard trees, individual lots. So certainly those will go in once, grading street utilities are done. Those buffer trees could probably go in, but we certainly put those in before Audubon improvements are made because there could be, a shift in the curb along there, which might mean a shift in our berm. Also not sure, we're probably planning to grade all in one shot. So we probably will have that berm in there. So if that berm is all graded in one shot, we'd probably time the planting of the landscape buffer with Audubon improvements. And then as far as the turn lanes go on Autumn Woods, that's a tough one. I might actually defer to Whitney. You had some advice on how that can maybe play out. I'm not sure.
So thank you everyone for coming here today, meeting with us. My name is Whitney Bainey. I'm with ISG. I performed the traffic study that was presented and provided in the packet. To answer your question, essentially with the turn lane, something that could be done, which if you're going to have heavy construction traffic, what I wouldn't recommend doing is reconstructing that all the way to your final pavement lift right away, because your pavement with truck traffic will get beaten up. So then it will take more of a wear. So doing something about going to the base or doing a milling over it, so that way that surface can be transitioned, but it's still widened, could be done. But I would wait until traffic is essentially completed to essentially bring all that up to a final lift.
And I think that was it. Liz covered 99% of everything. So again, we're excited for the opportunity to get started here, and we'll be here. So happy to answer any other questions that come up.
Yeah, I know you're available. So whoever's next, come on up.
Good evening. Nice to meet all of you in person. I'm Emily Rome Welter. I'm at 2887 Ironwood Boulevard. I am one of the representatives kind of on the neighborhood team. I'm the one, of course, that spoke to you at the first meeting. After that meeting, and given the volume of work and sort of what needed to be done, I asked Kip Dunkelberger, who lives on Butternut, as well as Mark Lundgren, who lives on Autumn Woods Drive, so that we would have representatives from kind of just the various streets, to work on this with me. So a couple things, I think you heard a very good summary of all the changes, and the plan is dramatically different. No plan is perfect, but gosh, we've seen a whole heck of a lot of improvement in really all of the areas, I would say, that the neighbors collectively raised as issues of concern. I want to thank on behalf of the neighborhood, this group. The negotiating and collaborating was pretty intense. We had 7.5 hours of in-person meetings over 3 separate meeting times with the city, the county, Lennar, and the Jonathan Association at various of those meetings. But really the blueprint that let us have those meaningful conversations and move this in a way that I think ultimately, hopefully, the new people that move into the Lennar neighborhood really benefit from a terrific now neighborhood with more open space and all the things we care about. But that the neighborhood around it can really support it and be a part of it too. But that we got there because there were pretty specific conditions put on, and we appreciate the listening that happened and the partnership throughout. A couple things, and then I'll just sit down. The areas of continued focus for the neighborhood will be, and you guys have kind of hit it all on the head, as have our partners at the city, the continued monitoring of the traffic calming is going to be important, and how that develops. And for everybody here who lives particularly on Autumn Woods Drive or online, who might be saying, gosh, none of this was in your summaries, Emily, that's because the only thing that's happened with respect to that element of the road, so everyone over there will be able to collaborate in that continued resolution of the issues over there. We've just asked the city to keep that on their plate. So if you're listening online or if you're here, that is kind of the next to-do item as we move forward out of this process. We will, though, be keeping an eye internally, and not in a collaborative way, on how do we make sure that the things that have been planned inside the development and the ones mentioned to you, the additional stop signs, lane narrowing, how that will function. The right out is a really big deal. That was kind of the function of the last several meetings, and in partnership with everybody and with the county, we've been able to, that's on the path, as I understand it, to approval. So that's a big piece. One thing I would mention, there's a particularly affected lot that is on the corner of Butternut and Ironwood. It's the Madsen family. And I think that they're, that's a tough lot. I think Lennar has tried to do what they can, but we would just encourage whatever continued mitigation for that family that can be made. That is the corner there where the road will come down. So they kind of go from having a road on one side and a stub, right, which was always there, but now to having a lot of roads. So there's some additional screening and some things that have been proposed that I think will be important. But in general, I would say a lot of support from the neighborhood. We remained a cohesive group throughout. Your conditions helped us get to where we are now. We'll stay in the process here with you all the way through, but a lot of hard work from everyone. Lennar has put in a lot of work and has been a good collaborative negotiation partner, as has everyone else. So if there are any questions that you have for us, we can try to answer. If there's anything I missed, guys, let me know, but anything you want from us as we're here, other than to sit down. Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commission, City. My name is Jeremy Landcamer-Ely, and I'm here representing the Jonathan Association Board of Directors and members. My address is 1368 Romeo Court in the Cloverfield neighborhood. And I just want to express a little bit further of the sentiments of the collaboration that has happened to get the product of this project to where it is tonight. And really, it's a testament to our members in Autumn Woods and coming together as a community to support this development and doing it right. To then our partners at the city really backing up all the conditions that you set forth. And then Lennar being a really great developer that wants to come in and help advance this neighborhood. And that being said, I really want this to be a testament to what this commission body can do when you set forth conditions for developers as we go forward. If I recall back, we have a very similar situation. Same Jonathan Association, same developer being Lennar with Pioneer Point, the same place butting up to a Jonathan neighborhood. And at that time, the commission said, it's not our job to say that they have to join the HOA. But you see tonight, when you set forth conditions that say, we can't force you to join the Jonathan, but boy, we can say it's important. It's important to the members and the residents of Chaska that you work together to continue to enhance our community. And I just want to say thank you specifically to Commissioner Brass and Commissioner Riley for helping set forth these conditions that got us to where we are tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Anyone else? Kevin, do we have anyone? No one. All right. I guess that being said, I'm going to close the public hearing at 8 o'clock and bring it back to the commission for any further comments. Move on with motions.
I'd like to add some conditions.
Which I think we'll do it or during the motion, right? Or you want to discuss them first? Go ahead.
Just to see where you're at. So to me, the timing is important to me. I mean, I would like conditions that the turn lanes up there at Autumn Woods Drive are constructed at the commencement of construction. If they want to leave the top 1.5 or 2 inches of wear off, that makes sense. I do think the timing of that screening is important. And I think that they can do that in anticipation of whatever is going to happen on Audubon, with the widening. But I think it is important to that be done at the outset, and that we have a time period associated with it, whether it be within 1 month of commencement of grading or something reasonable. I mean, it doesn't have to be the first thing that happens out there, but it needs to happen out there before they dig the first foundation or something. I think we need to provide some sort of criteria. I'd like to see the condition for the construction traffic plan defining the signing and routing for the traffic. And I'd also like to add a condition that they'll add additional screening for the Butternut and Ironwood property, the family that Emily references as being impacted, because you do look at that lot, right now they're on a stub, but if you look at the alignment of where Butternut is going to come through, it's going to come at an angle across their backyard. So, it's not like they're just going to have, traffic now, off to their left, but they're actually going to have it on two sides of them. So I think that, if I were that property owner, I'd sure want that. So those are the items that, as I listen to this and look at it over the weekend, that come to mind. So
on the screening for Audubon, can you elaborate more on that? I'm not quite following, but I agree with the other points you made.
And rightly so, they've included a berm along that right-of-way line for Audubon.
Some of the plant plants on a berm or do physical fencing?
No, so as part of the landscaping plan that they have tree plantings, at a certain placement and densities to eventually provide some screening, some visual breakup for.
Already have it in the plan. It's just a matter of the timing of when they actually put it in.
And I think that the concern potentially was, right, if they have to move their berm, they're going to just end up eating into that hill or relocating that hill and having to replant plants.
And that's what I heard, which to me, I mean, they have a very capable engineer, and they're going to know where Audubon's going to be before they start moving dirt. So they just put that berm where it's got to go.
So one thing I might suggest that from a timing perspective would be, because they're obviously motivated to get in here and build, because that's really what they do, is that prior to the building permit, first building permit, that I always get a little anxious on, you can go up there, on timing with grading and when are they starting rough grading versus finished grading versus all different types of grading that's going on.
Something tangible.
Something that's a little bit more tangible. Josh.
I was just going to add, and I'm sure the concern is probably volume of traffic coming out, and when do we have those turn lane improvements made before there's actually actual traffic coming out? Right now, and this could change, but from the time, and this is a lot because of material and labor issues, but from the time that we get building permits to when we actually have a certificate of occupancy and we're ready to have someone move in, right now the timeline is 6 months for our builds. So, I mean, certainly we could do building permit, but would you accept at the first certificate of occupancy issued for the development? Because at that point, that it would have to be in by then, not started by then, but it would have to be, the turn lane improvements would have to be completed by the time the first certificate of occupancy is issued for the development. Because that way it's in before there's even one person living in the community.
I'd like it at the building permit. Would be commissioners, that's where I'd like to be, but, that this is, we collaboratively vote on this and decide, so.
I think it's a fair point. I'd be fine with the first certificate of occupancy, because the reason for the turn lanes is because of the increased residents. And since you don't have any residents until you get your first certificate of occupancy, then that would be the appropriate time. So I'd be okay with that. I don't know what the rest of the commission is.
And then would we be okay with constructing the lanes, but as you guys said, wait till later on to do the final, whatever, final layer of tar, whatever that is, and striping and.
Fine.
Good. That
How
makes,
we do it, if we were out there, we would get all the construction done, put down the wear course so you have a nice, pretty finish and one that hasn't been beat up by construction activity. Even when they build their roads, they're going to wait on the wear course for a while and let the road get settled as well too. So then you get a little less defects in the road itself. And so timing, having a wear course just be the only thing out there for a while, that's okay. Building the turn lanes, that should happen right away. But putting the wear course, that should just happen as part of the development process.
And I'll add, I don't know, we're going to want to get this thing built as quickly as we can. It's not like we're going to hold off and wait on things until that first CO is available. But, with weather and things like that, it would just be nice to have at least some time to get off the ground with grading and things like that. So have those turn lane improvements in before we have all the utilities in, before we're even close to asking for a building permit. So, but if we could have that leniency in the timeline, appreciate it.
anyone else? Questions?
It's great to have a definitive date. I could go certificate of occupancy as well. I'm not opposed to building permit. That might be a little aggressive on overall timing, but I'd like to know what everyone here thinks as well.
I agree with yourself and Commissioner Brass. I think there's no one living there until, you have a certificate of authenticity. You shouldn't have, except for construction traffic, increased.
I think the key part here is just having the timeline and having a date of when something's going to be done versus at some point in time. It's when is it going to be done? So
Certainly pin them to at least the first house. So they have to get it in. And then the berm.
The certificate of occupancy.
The berm, I do agree that should be early too. And so I don't know if there's a timeline for that, if it's before the first certificate of occupancy again. Would that seem reasonable? So then, grading happens fairly quickly. People in Chanhassen and other neighbors, that berm would be in before major construction. What do you think, Commissioner Riley?
Yeah, I'd support you. I'm not going to, stand on principle, but yeah, I do appreciate you all buying into the fact that we need to.
I think it's a fair point.
Certificate of occupancy is fine.
I guess the question with the berming is with the right out only. Once that's complete, then you would assume that everything is set for Audubon, right?
It should be.
So I mean, technically the berming should be structured as into when that ride out only is complete.
Yeah, and they might grade right over, fair point, they might grade, when they're grading right away, the initial grading, they might be able to get that berm in. So I don't know, these are details, I'm not sure.
And of course, any utility issues and stuff.
There is possible utility issue, yeah.
We would want that to be done so they're not redoing it.
And as a later date, we'd like them to exceed it, be better then, but as an outside date, berm and traffic lane should be done, by the first certificate of occupancy for the house. And hopefully they do better than that, so it gives them a little bit of a window.
Okay. And also we want to make the construction traffic plan a point as well.
Yeah.
So it looks like we would want to add a 25 for construction traffic plan and a 26 for certificate, and maybe a 27 if we want to keep the traffic lanes and the berm separate. Certificate of hopefully they're authentic, but the certificate of occupancy for the lanes and the berms, and I believe that would, somebody makes us, does that make 27?
And then
Next 27, and then do we want to add 28 for, I think it's the Madsen family, that lot? I mean, do we add a few more trees? I mean, is there something a little bit more that they just explore there?
Yeah,
The one lot that's, that's
Screening on the south
of
edge.
the Madsen.
A two-sided lot or a two,
they'll come up with a detailed screening plan for the north side of the Madsen property.
Yeah, just add that as a condition.
Put up have the landscape plan,
You.
and it would be the southeast sheet, not the overall, would show a close-up of it. Yeah. And just for clarification, Dan Manson and I have spoken, emailed through this process, and totally understand that, arguably his lot is the most affected by this community. But what we can offer to do is we're going to take that landscape buffer that's shown on the along Audubon, and we're just going to wrap that around and continue it along our south property line over to the Ironwood connection. There's room there between our infiltration basin and the south property line, so that way all three of those neighbors will have
along the back of, is it just his property right there?
property.
Three of them, that's what I thought, okay.
And if once Liz gets the landscape plan up, you'll see that both sides of Ironwood will have trees planted, boulevard trees planted every 50 feet. So that should help, from any second story views, but hopefully would help with buffering of view of that road once it's built. Yeah, I should be able to see it here.
I don't have a mouse, so it's very difficult.
Yeah, some of these pre-plat files can get really large. Yeah. So, yep. So they'll be planted every 50 feet throughout the community, but I think it would help, especially there along the curvilinear portions of Ironwood as it comes north there.
And would you say that the Madsen family the occupants there are happy with this plan you presented, or are they still looking for something more?
I speak for them. Last I spoke with Dan, I wouldn't say he was happy with the plan. But
his concern is just the road back there.
Right, kind of curving back behind his
Gotcha.
his lot. And the reasons for the curve here, obviously the wetland.
Yeah.
We wanted to avoid further wetland impacts, but also between us, our engineers and city staff, the idea of not only narrowing this section, but also having a curve as close to Ironwood Park as possible, which would force traffic to slow at that curve as you're approaching the park. Also another traffic calming measure.
So immediately behind him, there is an outlot that is the wetland. So it's, okay.
And so what you're not seeing here is we'll continue that landscape buffer along that south property line all the way over to Ironwood. So hopefully add some supplemental buffer there.
Additional buffer across that
So your
okay.
condition would be provision of that plan that
Correct.
shows that landscaping along that property line.
It would be,
Across outlot E to ironwood.
Yep. Yeah. It's coniferous trees or something.
Yeah, it'll be evergreens, so it's year round.
Perfect.
And city staff, you'll work between the Madsen family and the developer to make sure that they're happy. That's how it goes, right? Yeah.
We'll have them put in as many evergreen trees as they possibly can along that area. And,
Yeah.
you want them to live, but, that you can provide year-round screening in that area. And that
Addition
28.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
I think now that we've gone through that, I think we are ready to take a motion.
Before
On
we
the first-
do, I just,
I'm sorry.
just one last thing. We have a lot of outlots here. And in the narrative, there's a table that describes the ownership and the responsibilities. And I just want to verify, 5 of the 6 outlots ownership will be the HOA, but the city maintenance responsibility will be the infiltration basin. And that's common, right? Like there's not a lot along, okay.
Let them be the experts of the neighborhood open space. We'll be the experts of the stormwater and we'll kind of stay in our swim lanes that way.
Brian, before we do a motion, can I say a few words? Just
Sure.
all right. So I just want to, say, just kind of give you a feel for where I'm at. And this is important for the board, as well as you as developer, is that, I joined, the planning board. I went to the city council and they interviewed me and I talked about the importance of the concept of sustained development of informed consent. And I think that we got there. And for that technical term, if you break it down, sustained development, informed consent. I think we got to the goal, which is consent. I think the process that we got there was probably flawed. And it starts with Lennar. So my challenge to you is, within our community, the open tracts of land are limited. So what we as a planning board and city staff are dealing with are infill developments. And also as we see the life cycle of our community, we're going to start to see redevelopment. And so that process of getting to consent takes a lot of work and it's got to start early. What you came to us with as a concept was really bad. We were just being kind. And it was traumatic. It was traumatic to that neighborhood. I remember sitting there, we were there for more than 4 hours, right? And there was people angry and they were upset and, they were, losing sleep over it. And there was a lack of trust and it was just a really bad way to start out. And that's avoidable. And the things that you can do the next time that you come to us are start earlier. So some of the things that we heard from them were, one, that your notification to the neighborhood was very, very limited. So they felt, and then the notification was limited, and then your public meeting was within like 2 weeks of what you came to us with a concept. So a few people showed up at your public meeting. That the opportunity for you to take feedback and actually put that into your concept was 0. So what you came to us at a concept, it really had no public participation. So I challenge you the next time you come to us, do better in that regard. The other challenge is that this community, these are very intelligent, capable people, and it's a credit to them that we've got to where we are. And gotten to consent. But not every neighborhood has this group of individuals. This is a community that has a legacy of 35 years. We're going to be infilling into communities that don't have them. And so my challenge is that these issues that they've brought up, if you come back to us for an infill community, they're going to be the exact same issues. And please don't put it up on them to fight for it. Start out better. So, those are my comments. I think, as a commission, this is a challenge, guys. We get this on a Friday and then we're sitting here on a Wednesday. And so we're sitting here basically the seat of our pants trying to figure this out. And so, I give you guys a lot of credit, and I'm enjoying being a part of what you're doing. I think this is a success story, and I think if Lennar can come back to us next time with something better at the concept, it'll create less trauma for them and less like stress for us worrying about whether we're getting it right. So with that, I'll yield. Thank you, Brian, for the time.
Great. I just want to add to Commissioner Riley, I agree with his synopsis of the concept process that we went through. But to add to that, I also want to thank Lennar and the neighborhood group that you guys put together was outstanding. The way you were passionate at the beginning, you had every right to be, but you were also must have been very willing to, go back and forth and listen and put in your input and come to a consensus. And that.
You left out the homeowners association in the city too. Make a good finished product.
Yep, I was getting there. They needed the Jonathan Association's help, and they're there. And of course, the staff does, in my opinion, an admirable job on every project we do. So this is a how-to, at least after, this is a how-to come to a preliminary. So I agree, the concept could have been smoother at the beginning, but you guys obviously, and of course, the smoother you are at the beginning, probably the less work you have in between. And you had a lot of work to do in between. So I commend everybody for that.
Yeah, I'd like to commend both parties for being willing to communicate. And, nothing is ever always easy. And you work for it, you ask for it, you listen, you collaborated. And I think that's the topic, that's the big story of what happened here from that time. And so thanks to all parties.
Very good. I'm willing to entertain a motion.
Also move.
Why don't you go ahead and read it, and then we'll make sure we get the points on it. Well, yeah, we'll do them all separate, yeah. So this would be the first motion for the Autumn Woods Division.
I gotta get to the right page. Liz, do you mind helping me out?
Yep, the first, let me just bring up that last slide because that lays it all out.
There's multiple.
That's packet page 16 is where the motion starts.
Share my screen.
Are you?
Just say reserve at Autumn Woods, not, it's like I click on there.
So the first bullet item. So I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat for Wagner Woods based upon the conditions listed in the staff report, as well as the conditions 4 conditions added, correct?
Which makes 28.
Which totals 28.
28 conditions.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign, motion carries. All right, our next, we want to, we have to do do a motion to recommend approval of rezoning of reserve at Autumn Woods from an open O to a planned, to a PRD 79 planned residential district. That's a separate motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning from open to PRD 79.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then our last motion would be to recommend approval of the, that little, like, keep pointing up there, that little strip of land that the developer needs along the south of Autumn Woods Drive and the west of Audubon Road.
Make the motion to recommend approval of the sale of excess city property south of Audubon Woods Drive and west of Audubon Road.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. A second? Thank you, Commissioner Lacey. Any discussion there? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and again, thank you guys for all of your hard work. It was impressive what came back. We were pleased to see that.
Jeremy, I assume that you've written the notes on how to make this happen the next time it comes?
Hopefully we won't need to have 30% representation of the Jonathan to make it happen, but.
Okay. Now we just have to do some housework here, I guess. We have to receive some other meeting minutes, read them into our records. We want to receive in the September 13th and September 20th, 21 City Council meeting minutes, receive the September 13th and 20th 2021 EDA meeting minutes, and receive the August 10th and September 14th 2021 Park Board meeting minutes. Those have been read in, so we are good to go there. Let's do a quick roundtable. Anybody want to bring up anything else? Commissioner Riley, we'll start with you. Commissioner Lacey, Olson. All right, fellas.
Is there a
anything?
festival this weekend?
Fire and ice.
Yep.
Fire and ice. What's the big event? The curling.
Bombs Field.
I'm not supposed to say out loud stuff, but you can pretend it's not on the record. Thank you very much. Really appreciate all the work.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, Johnny Holmes Saturday night. That's huge. That's Johnny Holmes played Saturday night at Steamboat Days, and it looked like Woodstock down there. There were so many people. I couldn't believe it.
In which way of Woodstock?
Well, just the numbers. Well, it was Carver, though. No, I shouldn't say that. No, it was fun, though. Very, very. Johnny Holmes is as good as it gets in our area, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I don't have anything else either. You guys, Liz? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Brass? Commissioner Seiler for second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.